Alright guys, it's time to do my Testament album ranking video, and well, I'm going to start off by saying Testament was one of the first thrash bands outside the big four that I discovered, and I remember the first time I heard a little bit of Practice What You Preach. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, it sounds exactly like Metallica, which obviously it doesn't, but you know, I kind of thought Chuck Billy had that James Hetfield style vocal style, and the guitars were rashy, and so I'm like, well, anything that plays like that has to sound like Metallica, right? But anyway, fast forward, they've really become one of my favorite bands, and something about Testament that, on one hand, they're really, really good at what they do. They're really good at just straightforward thrash. But at the same time, with the talent that this band possesses, I always kind of felt like they were capable of a little more. I always thought that they could have potentially had their own master of puppets, because you got Alex Skolnick on guitar, lead guitar, that's just like, he's an amazing guitarist, 10 times better than like Kirk Hammett or anything. But, and you got Eric Peterson, that's probably one of the meanest freaking rhythm guitar players there ever was. And I just always thought this band had a little bit more potential. But with that being said, I love what they brought to the table. I love their brand of thrash. I don't know. Like, let's just get into the albums now. So, let's start with the Legacy. Of course, this band was actually originally called Legacy back in the day, but they changed their name to Testament in the late 80s, and they even named their album The Legacy, so that's cool. This one, from first listen, the production is awful, okay? It is like really, really bad, but at the same time, like the first time I heard it, it bothered me. But as I got to know these songs on this album, it actually became like just a part of it. Like it became one of the things that made this album even better. I don't know. It just makes the album so much meaner and raw sounding. Because this album has only one intent, and that's just to rip your throat out, man. This album is just freaking intense. It starts off with Over the Wall, one of the best Testament songs altogether, and has one of the best solos. It's amazing. You got The Haunting, which is just exactly what it is. It's haunting. Then you got, this is one of the only albums that actually had song structures that kind of defied the norm. Like Burnt Offerings kind of just goes off on a tangent in the middle and just goes nuts, and then it comes back to the main idea. But I really wish Testament would have done more things like this, but it's okay that they didn't. And you got The First Strike is Deadly. I don't know. This album is perfect from beginning to end. I like every track on it. I like everything about it. Definitely going to have to be a Legacy of Greatness tier. Now entering the New Order. A lot of people think this album's better than the Legacy in every way. I don't think that's my take on this, but I think the Legacy improves on some things, but this album feels far shorter in my opinion. There's a little bit more filler, literally, there's actually that track, I forgot what it is, but there's one that literally was just thrown on there with some clean guitar and some lead stuff, and it was literally filler. I think the label told them they had to add some extra time to the album, and that's what they did. But it's a cool track. But I don't know, the lead guitar stuff's awesome again. The riffs are good. These songs aren't quite as in-your-face and thrashy as the Legacy, but it's still pretty in-your-face and thrashy. I feel like they tried to go a little more of a well-rounded sound with this, which I think they succeeded with. Eerie Inhabitants, Into the Pit, Disciples of the Watch. I even think Musical Death, A Dirge, is a underrated instrumental at the end of the album. Nobody talks about it, but this is the kind of thing I really would have liked to have heard Testament do more of. Just really musical stuff like this, because they have the talent. But anyway, it doesn't matter. This album's really good. The production's a little better, although one thing Testament has always had a problem with, their guitar tone is always just too fuzzy. It just, a lot of their riffs kind of, it's not as defined. You can't really hear every pick attack like you should, but I don't know. I always kind of like their sound for what it is. This one definitely gives a Legacy of Greatness. Practice What You Preach. Dude, like, this album doesn't get nearly as much attention as the first two, and I don't know why, because I think Practice What You Preach is an amazing album. I do think some of the songs kind of run into each other a little bit. There's not a whole lot of variety to this album, but I think the songs are extremely memorable. The choruses are good. Chuck Billy's vocals might even be at their best here. I think the solos might even be, I think Skolnick's solos are even at their best here. I think they're the most memorable. I don't know. I really like this album. And this one actually has a production that while I wouldn't say it's the best, I think it's the best of the 80s albums. I think that this one just has a sound that works. It still has that fuzzy guitar sound, but gosh dang, I just love the way it sounds. I love the way the bass sounds in the mix. This is just a really cool sound. But again, I like every track off of this album, just like the past two. There's no flaws. Yeah, I don't know. I like the ballad. The first album to actually contain a ballad called The Ballad. I think it's cool. I don't know. Legacy of Greatness for sure. Souls of Black. I would really, really like to rate this one higher. But this one noticeably sounds a little bit weaker than the albums before. And there's a reason for that. It was rushed. The label had them rush it. And I even remember watching like some Testament interview one time from back in the day where they even said that, yeah, we don't have to, it don't really take us very long to write songs and put an album together, pretty much like we could do this in our sleep type of thing. And, well, there you go. You got Souls of Black. That's not really the thing I want to hear from my favorite band is, yeah, I could do that in my sleep. We don't even need to try. That pretty much explains why Testament has never come out with their own Master of Puppets right there. But anyway, the album's still good. I like Face in the Sky, Souls of Black, the song's good. Malpractice is good. There's a ballad on there called The Legacy. Not the most creative with their ballad titles, are they? But no, it's pretty good. I like the album, but I think this one's pretty mediocre for the most part. So I'll have to put this on Brotherhood of the Average. All right, now we got our Testament Sellout album, The Ritual, basically their Black album or Countdown to Extinction. But how does it fare? Pretty good. Honestly, I really, really like this album a lot. It's memorable. The production, finally we got a production that's really good. Like, I really like the way this album sounds. Sonically, just everything. Chuck Billy sounds awesome. I don't know, man. Electric Crown, So Many Lies, Let Go of My World, even the ballad Return to Serenity. The whole thing is good. Believe it or not, I'm going to put this Legacy of Greatness. Can't help it. If it's good, it's good. Now, Testament realized that selling out didn't work for them. So then they kind of went the other way and did a heavier album. Something that's more very 90s, more in the groove vein. But they did an album called Low. And, this really, groove metal really isn't my thing. This isn't quite the sound I would have wanted Testament to go in, but you can't argue with results. This album is just really good. It still sounds like Testament. I mean, this is before Chuck Billy started going completely into the gutturals, but they don't sing quite as high on this one for the most part. And, I mean, you know, so we got a different guitarist on this, James Murphy. Amazing. Because, you know, Skolnick left to go pursue, like, other things. He just wanted to, I don't know, paint with different colors, I guess. But yeah, so I can't remember a lot of the titles off of this album for some reason, but I can't help it. The whole thing is pretty well good. So I'm just going to give this Legacy of Greatness. Next, oh boy, we hit an all-time low with this one. And it's funny because the album before it's called Low, but this is the first low point of Testament. And this is Demonic. Well, I wouldn't say demon force. There must have been some sort of demon forces in this, because what would make Testament release such a horrible album? So I really don't have much of anything to say about this. This is a total nod to the death metal direction, and whether you actually call this true death metal, I don't know. I'm not a big death metal guy, but all I know is Chuck Billy pretty much relies on gutturals on this album. The riffs are tuned down and just a bunch of sludgy, heavy nonsense to me that just don't go anywhere. The only song I can give any credit to is the song Demonic Refusal, the first track. This song actually sounds pretty cool at first. It's not my style, but I'll admit the production and the way it sounds, the all heaviness is pretty cool, but it's not enough to save this album. No thanks. This album is rated How Low Can You Go for sure. Now we have The Gathering. This is a huge improvement overall. Again, this is not really my style. I like my Testament to be pure 80s thrash for the most part. This one's still got a bit of a death metal fusion in it. Now, personally, I think this album's really good at what it does. I probably would have rated this lower, but I re-listened to this album like a week ago, and I was like, okay, like, better than I remember, actually. It's pretty solid. I mean, the guitar mean in this one, the production's mean. Chuck Billy does a little bit of gutturals, but it's not like the entire time or anything. It's a little bit more of a mixed bag, which I appreciate. But there's definitely some thrashy moments to this album. But it's not the old school melodic thrashy Testament that I like the most. But I will still give this, this strike is deadly for sure. Next. Okay, so we had a kind of a hiatus with Testament. You know, Chuck Billy he had cancer for a little bit. Thank God he beat that. Because they came back and they got Alex Skolnick back. Then they did a comeback album called The Formation of Damnation. And, you know, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. When it comes to the comeback albums of Testament, and I don't have much to say about a lot of them, but this was pretty cool. I don't think they outdid themselves or anything, but this one does have some old school Testament isms to it. Chuck Billy sings a little bit lower, but he still sounds good. The solos are good. The riffs are pretty good. I don't know. He's got a little bit of gutturals. I really don't care for when Chuck Billy does a lot of gutturals. I honestly wouldn't mind if he just skipped that altogether, but hey, whatever. I give this album This Strike is Deadly. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest, and I'm probably not going to make any friends here, because I know some people really like the comeback Testament albums. I am not really that impressed. Okay, The Formation of Damnation started something, and I feel like the rest of the comebacks don't really surprise me all that much. It's just not the, it's not entirely the Testament that I personally want. Sorry, but not sorry. I don't think they're bad. They're listenable. I mean, I can listen to all of them, but I don't really want to come back for more that often. And I don't know what it is. Maybe this will change over time. So, Dark Roots of Earth, Brotherhood of the Snake, and the newest one, which I can't even remember the title of. But I just remember hearing a few tracks, and I was just like, yeah, it's just more of the same. I don't know. You know what? I give everything Dark Roots of Earth and past that, I give them all Brotherhoods of the Average, just because they don't quite do it for me, but I think they're good. But yeah. So anyway, that's Testament, probably my third favorite thrash band. I don't know, Overkill's been really fighting for that third place, but I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. That's the end of my video. Thanks for watching.